In the early hours of February 24, 2022, the Russian airborne forces, including members of their elite paratrooper unit, crossed the border at Hostomel, beginning Russia's long-planned invasion of Ukraine. Since then, the war has dominated the headlines. But looking past the headlines of the biggest European conflict since World War II, there's another war being fought by democratic governments all around the world, a financial one. Wars cost money, and this is no exception. Nations across the globe have spent hundreds of billions of dollars on this conflict supporting and aiding Ukraine. But what is the real cost of the war? Who is paying for it? And what would have happened if no Western aid was provided? Let's break it down. Ukraine and its brave soldiers have been fighting for their nation's survival, and that fight has come with an enormous price tag. Since the war began, Ukraine itself has reportedly spent roughly $105 billion on its own defense. Weapons, troop salaries, infrastructure repairs, military operations, clothing, food, the list goes on and on. Despite the aid from other nations, Ukraine has shouldered a heavy financial burden in its struggle for sovereignty. Ukraine has fought valiantly, but they have not faced the might of Russia alone. The international community, particularly the United States and the European Union, have stepped in to provide substantial financial and military assistance to keep Ukraine afloat and fighting. According to the European Union's own report, as of the end of 2024, the European Union and its member states have combined their efforts to contribute over $149 billion in financial, military, and humanitarian aid to Ukraine. European nations have supplied Leopard tanks, air defense systems, and artillery shells, while also providing critical economic assistance to stabilize Ukraine's economy. The EU has implemented strict sanctions on Russia, cutting off vital revenue streams and reducing its ability to sustain the war effort. European nations have also taken in millions of Ukrainian refugees, offering them shelter, jobs, and medical care. While the European Union has provided substantial financial aid to Ukraine's defense, no single nation has contributed more financially to the Ukrainian war effort than the United States. While President Trump has claimed the U.S. has spent over $300 billion on Ukrainian defense, that number is in dispute. The U.S. Congress has approved a total of 5 bills with final budget authority to provide $175 billion to aid Ukraine. According to the Kiel Institute, $128 billion of that has gone directly to aid the government of Ukraine, while the remainder has funded various U.S. activities related to the Ukrainian war effort. This support has included advanced weapons systems like the HIMARS High Mobility Artillery Rocket System, Patriot missiles, and Abrams tanks, as well as intelligence sharing and financial backing to keep Ukraine's government functioning. Without this level of commitment, Ukraine's ability to resist Russian aggression would have been significantly weakened. These figures represent the total spent through the end of 2024. Worth noting is that as of March 2025, President Trump has at least partially paused the flow of U.S. intelligence to Ukraine. The extent of this pause is unclear. This pause comes after a fiery exchange between Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, and Ukrainian President Zelensky in the White House. But what about Russia? Reports suggest Russia has spent over $150 billion on the war, a financial strain that has only been exacerbated by heavy economic sanctions placed on them by the West. Russia's inflation rates remain elevated and are trending up. The annual inflation rate reached 10.1%, up from 9.9% in January, marking the highest level since February 2023. Analysts have adjusted their forecasts, now expecting inflation to average between 7 and 8% for the year, an increase from earlier projections of 4.5% to 5%. These persistent inflationary trends, coupled with labor shortages and the exodus of skilled professionals, continue to strain Russia's economic stability. While the Russian government continues to finance its military operations, the long-term costs, including economic isolation and a weakening ruble, are becoming increasingly apparent. Russia is not alone, though. They have had the assistance of their allies North Korea and Iran. Iran has been accused of providing hundreds of unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, to wreak havoc on Ukraine's people, its military, and its infrastructure. Additionally, Iran has been accused of helping Russia build a drone factory in Russia to produce even more UAVs. Although they have never publicly acknowledged support for Russia in the conflict, North Korea has reportedly provided at least 11,000 troops to aid Russia's war efforts. As of March 27, 2025, it was reported North Korea was sending an additional 3,000 troops to supplement those killed or injured in the conflict. Both NATO and the United States Department of Defense have confirmed North Korean troops have been sent to fight against Ukraine. The United States has also accused China of aiding Russia in their war against Ukraine. Former Secretary of State Anthony Blinken warned Wang Yi, China's top diplomat at the time, that if China were to provide lethal aid to Russia, it would have very serious consequences for United States-Chinese relations. Critics of military aid often ask, what if the world had simply stayed out of it? What if Ukraine had been left to defend itself? Although speculations can never truly be confirmed, the cost of inaction could have been much greater than taking a stance against Russia's aggression. Ukraine is one of the world's largest exporters of grain and sunflower oil. If Russia had taken over, global food supply chains could have faced severe disruptions, sending prices skyrocketing. Beyond that, a Russian-controlled Ukraine could have emboldened further aggression, destabilizing Eastern Europe and even NATO territories. In that scenario, the outbreak of World War III could become more likely, possibly leading to an overall global nuclear exchange. That is not a calculation we ever care to make. So where does that leave us? The war in Ukraine has cost hundreds of billions of dollars, but the true cost goes beyond money and equipment. It's about stability, security, and the future of global alliances. It's also about the human cost. The UK's Ministry of Defence estimates that between 200 to 250,000 Russian soldiers have been killed since the war began. As for the Ukrainian people, they have lost an estimated 43,000 troops and nearly 13,000 civilians in the conflict. Keep in mind that this is an active war theater, and we will have no accurate casualty numbers until the conflict is brought to an end. President Trump has stated he is the president of peace and that he aims to bring an end to the conflict. As of the writing of this story, the conflict is still ongoing. In closing, the world has made a choice to invest in Ukraine's resistance. Whether that investment pays off in a free and democratic Ukraine remains to be seen, but one thing is certain: the cost of war is always high, and it is to history to judge its final value. If you found this breakdown insightful, consider subscribing for more fact-based analysis on global finance and politics. Drop a comment below. Let's continue the conversation. Thank you for watching.